How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. 24 hours from now is going to be a really important time for us to be paying attention to. And I realize sometimes influencers, myself included, will talk about 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. There's a big event. But this actually will change the sentiment in the market, I think, significantly, either in a really good direction or in a bad direction, which is what I want to talk about in today's video. If you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification so you can see future videos just like this. Also, stay through to the end of the video because we're going to cover really what I think about this, whether this is actually a buying opportunity or whether this is something to be really scared about. Also, there is going to be a link to Margex underneath the video where you can trade cryptocurrencies on leverage. As I said, we are seeing a bit of a reverse head and shoulders, and we've seen some support on this trend line. We're pretty close to it now. So this is something that you may want to pay attention to. Maybe you want to put in some longs ahead of this big move. If you want to do that, you can definitely check out the link to Margex. You get a deposit bonus that can be used towards fees when you use that link. There's also a link down there to CoinW in case you want to try that out. This is a platform that I really like, and there's no KYC for either of these. You can start trading today. And there's a link to this that gives you some bonuses as well. You also get to be part of a trading group as well on CoinW if you use the link underneath the video that can give you like free setups, trading alerts, all that kind of stuff. Now, let's just get right into why I think 24 hours from now is a pretty big moment for the market. Like, a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this, and it's going to drive either the bearish narrative or the bullish narrative for maybe a couple weeks. Now, the reason for that, we saw an outflow week. This was the largest amount of outflows that we've seen since the ETFs were approved. We had 5 days of outflows. Now, I'm saying net outflows. Of course, the new ETFs were buying each day, but Grayscale overshadowed them by selling more. You can see how much Grayscale sold the last 5 days right here. Significant amounts, with a record of 642 million, all the way going down to 170 million by the end of the week. But every single day was net negative for the ETFs, for all the ETFs combined. Now, I think tomorrow's an important day because we've had 5 days of net outflows. And the question in people's minds is, okay, is this going to continue? Like, what exactly is happening? Why, first of all, was there a large surge in the outflows coming from Grayscale? And more importantly, maybe, why was there a decrease in the inflows? Because we did not have super strong days from Blackrock or Fidelity. And in a lot of people's minds, tomorrow is a day where we see, okay, was this just a 1 week fluke? Is everyone getting their stuff back together for Monday? Or did this freak out the market that we saw a 10, 20% dip and now the ETFs don't want to buy? That's the real question here. Now, in my mind, it looks like we have a pretty good technical setup if we see inflows this week. There's going to be a narrative shift, which is just that, hey, that was just a 1 week thing. Now we're going to see inflows. We have Mr. 100 buying. We have a lot of institutions buying. We have other big bullish things happening in the future. And we could see something similar to what we've seen in the past, which is on Mondays, everyone's talking to their friends and family about how much money they made in Bitcoin recently. Maybe they're at the golf club and saying, oh yeah, you definitely need to invest in Bitcoin. Now, that was something that happened while we've been moving up since the ETF approval. Like, hey, I made so much money. Now the narrative is going to be more like, hey, I know that you wanted in on Bitcoin because I told you about it. It's down like 20%. You might want to buy because this is the last time that you can probably buy before the Bitcoin halving, before like a bunch of bullish things happen. And I think that's really what people are going to be talking about, which is, hey, if you want to get in, like we've already gone up a lot, but now we're seeing a bit of a pullback. Now's the time to get in, because I've actually had a family friend that had never invested in crypto, but like maybe a month ago, they asked about FBTC, about buying some, and I said, yeah, that might make sense. I told them my thoughts on it, and then they wrote me this last week saying, hey, maybe I should double down. What do you think? And I gave my opinion, but like we're seeing people doing that now. So I would not be surprised if that narrative goes out there, which is that you have an opportunity to buy before the next bull run, like before we continue up, you might want to get in now. So we might see a bit of extra volume on Monday, which is what we typically see. All the people that want to get in over the weekend, well, they all have to do it Monday. So I think that would be pretty bullish. Now, on the other side, if we do have another day of outflows, I can see the bears really taking advantage of that, saying, oh, see, there's no demand anymore. This was just all pent-up demand. Now there's no demand. We're going to see outflows. Grayscale still dumping. That's what they're going to say. Now, I really do think that this would be a buying opportunity because we know that there are a lot of people that still can't buy. Like a lot of financial institutions and pensions haven't started buying the ETFs. A lot of financial advisors aren't really taught on how to sell the ETFs yet. The ETFs have to get approved by compliance before they can start being sold. And we're not quite there. Like they're relatively new. They're 2 months old. But they still are some of the most successful products, some of the best returns for any ETF out there. So they're going to be approved and then people are going to start selling them. We also know that Blackrock is going to include Bitcoin exposure in funds like their strategic income fund. There's another one that they are going to include it in. And these are between these two funds, they hold about 50 billion in assets. Now, just a 5% exposure would be $2.5 billion. That would dwarf all the selling from last week. Like if they just make a shift in 2 of their portfolios, which is if they just take less than 0.5% of all their AUM and put a small percentage into Bitcoin from that, that causes us to spike in price. That would cause all this selling to be null. We would see massive net inflows, and that's going to happen at some point because they did send something to the SEC saying, hey, we want to do this. So I would not be surprised for that to happen in the next few months. We also know that some countries are starting to cut, which obviously would be super bullish for Bitcoin because as the Fed cuts rates, it's much cheaper to get debt. It's much better to go into higher risk investments because you're making a lot less from savings accounts and money markets. So that is fundamentally bullish. More people will put money into higher risk assets when the Fed starts cutting rates, which other countries are already doing now. I think this would be a buying opportunity, even if the bearish narrative continues, which is that, hey, there's not as much demand as we thought there was going to be. Now we're seeing outflows. If people start to say that, I still think it's a buying opportunity because BlackRock's going to keep on buying. We also know that the Fed is likely to cut rates multiple times this year. 3 times is what they said at the last meeting. So that's going to be extremely bullish for crypto. We also know that we've seen pockets like this as well. Like we've seen a net negative week, and then we just saw massive inflow weeks for 7 weeks afterwards. So it's not out of the question that we can have weeks like this where people capitulate. That's what we've seen. A lot of short-term buyers of the ETFs selling, and then we continue up. We continue to have more and more people buy. So I would not be surprised if we started to see another one of those times where, hey, we just have kind of a sideways week, and then we move up again. We also have whales buying, like Mr. 100, just buying a ton of Bitcoin, just 100 today, but 600 yesterday, 700, something like that. And we have the Bitcoin halving happening between 20 and 30 days from now, depending on what clock you're looking at. Some people are saying April 14, some people are saying April 20, somewhere in that range, we're going to have the Bitcoin halving. So yeah, there's still a lot of bullish things happening. And keep in mind, if we have another net negative day and Bitcoin does well, that really underscores what we talked about last week, which is there is some big buyer. We had a day where Bitcoin was plus 10%, and we had a net negative day for the ETFs. So if we have something like that again, like if we have a net negative day, but the market actually moves up, which again, it's looking fairly bullish, like this setup is looking bullish, that shows you that there are entities outside of the ETFs that are swallowing up a lot of Bitcoin. Because if you can absorb all this Bitcoin being sold, a couple hundred million in a day, and then also move up 10%, that tells you someone's buying probably billions of dollars of Bitcoin in a day. Probably just 1 to 5 entities are buying and doing the majority of that price spike, right? Pareto principle. 80% of the pump is from 20% of the buyers, and it's probably even less than that. It's probably like 2% of the buyers. Now, let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Let me know if you think that this makes sense. Again, I do think in the next 24 hours, it is a pretty pivotal point for the narrative going forward. Are we going to see outflows? Is the ETF demand done? Or is this just all backed up? That's what some people are going to say. That's what some bears are going to say if we have another day of outflows. If we go back to inflows, oh, well, that was just a pit stop. We're going to keep on seeing more demand. We're going to have the Bitcoin halving happening very soon. You want to get in now. This was your last chance to buy, like all that kind of stuff. Now, in the long term, does it change my viewpoint on Bitcoin? No. I still think we're heading to the same place, which is $100,000 plus Bitcoin, probably much more than that. This might just be a little bit of a cool-off period, right? There are different reasons that we could see outflows. We could have seen, some big entities selling off GBTC, going into something else. right? That's what we've seen with GBTC so far, is that there are like 2 or 3 entities that we know of that have had like $1 billion plus in the ETF. So this could just be one more. And there could be entities too that we don't even know about that are bankrupt or have dissolved, or they're just selling for some other reason. Maybe they want to position themselves somewhere else going into this next bull market, and they could be selling a large amount of this GBTC as well. And there could be a slowing down of the demand on the Blackrock side, Fidelity side, for various reasons as well. Let me know your thoughts, though. I do think this is a very bullish setup, as I've said like 5 times. This is a very bullish setup, and I think we're going to go back to crazy times sooner than most people think. Just like in the bear market, it feels like there's forever to buy. Then all of a sudden, we're up and away, and people feel FOMO. I think that's going to be the same thing here. We feel like there's forever to buy in the mid-60s when we're consolidating. Some people think we're going to fall down to 50 or 40 or 30 or 20, or I've even heard $2,000 or $3,000 Bitcoin. Everyone thinks there's all the time in the world until we have a 10, 20% day, and then another 5% day, and then another 4% day. Then all of a sudden, we're at 75,000 or 80,000, something like that. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Again, you can check out the links to Margex and to CoinW underneath. There's also a link to HGAlgo, something that I haven't talked about in a little while. But this is a way to look at bearish and bullish momentum indicators on all different kinds of assets, from crypto to stocks, and you can put it all over different time frames. So right here, when we flipped bearish on the 1 hour, was right around like 72K. It would have gotten you out before we had this big move down. And you can see all this bullish momentum, just continuous bullish momentum all the way up from about 38K all the way up to 72. And then we flipped bearish. Like, this can be really good for determining momentum of the market. So definitely check out that link underneath the video as well. It's 20% off as of now. Thanks.